In today's video, I'm going to explain why you, yes, you as a consumer who purchases products and services, is going to cause the next recession. Okay, so we're on the Federal Reserve website here, then the FRED. So this is the economic data from the St. Louis FRED. So let's take a look at this then, and the grey sections here represent recessions. So let's go back to the 80s then. We had a recession here. We had another recession shortly afterwards, which was a little bit more prolonged. Now look at consumer sentiment. So consumer sentiment is the confidence that consumers have in going out and making purchases. So you can see it dropped. So this is in the 80s. It drops from 80 all the way down to 50 through this recession. Again, it then built up very nicely, about 76, and then it dropped again through the next recession. It moved up to 100 here in 1984, and then we get to about 93, 94 before the next recession. Now, sometimes people say, oh, no, this happens as a result of the recession. Does it? Well, let's get a little bit closer and let's look at this bar then. Can you see it actually starts dropping before we went into the recession here, and then it crashes down through the recession. It then worked its way back up again as we're coming out of the recession, and then it moved upwards, so we got about 109, 110 here. But then what happened in the year 2000? Again, we went into another recession, and you can see the consumer sentiment index crashed down again to 90 before we went into the recession. Coming out of the recession, again, we had a build-up, and we just had this up and down pattern throughout the next few years of uncertainty. Now, here's where we get near to the Great Recession. Well, what do we see in January of 2007? We see consumer sentiment start to drop. Now, what is this? This is consumers rejecting higher prices. That's the key here. It crashes through, and then it builds up again as we come out of it. We had a dip here in 2011, and then again, ups and downs as we go through. Now, very interestingly, look what happened in January, February of 2020. So this is when the pandemic started, but before the actual lockdowns. During that very tiny recession, they call it, we actually crashed down from 101 right down to 72 in May of 2020. This is as a result of consumers tightening their belts because of uncertainty. It then picked up as a result, in my opinion, of so much stimulus, and people had money again to go out and start spending. Remember where this stimulus came from though. It wasn't earned income. It actually came from the government via the Federal Reserve. People weren't working, but yet they were still able to spend a lot of money. The trade deficit went up to $1 trillion in a year, not good either, with a lack of productivity, which is never good for any economy. Now look what started to happen then since around April, May time of last year. Consumer sentiment has started to crash down again, and we're sat at about 70 today. Now, by any indicator, this is a recessionary marker, because right now we're seeing this huge amount of inflation hitting the economy. What does this do? It weakens your purchasing power on your savings, on your wages, your salary. So you're actually getting double hit at the moment. Your savings and anything that you're earning is actually losing its purchasing power via inflation. But at the same time, prices are going up. So you're getting a double hit at the moment on your income. So what are people doing in order to combat this? They are going out and they're getting stocked up now. They are buying a lot of products that are more long life products that they know are going to be going up in price this year. Because if inflation is going to go up another 7.5% or whatever crazy number we get over the next year, then it makes sense to go out now with using the pounds, the dollars, the euros that you have. Why just keep them in a savings account? This is the sentiment of people right now. When you can just go out there, spend them instead of them losing purchasing power, buy the items that you need now. As prices go up, you're not affected by those rising prices. This is just common sense. So what do I think is going to happen here then? I think that consumers are actually going to start rejecting higher prices. Why will they reject them? Because they simply won't be able to afford the higher prices that are going to be asked of them. And then over the longer term here then, so we've got high inflation, which I believe is going to continue on for a while yet. We could then go into a period of stagflation. So that's inflation and deflation at the same time. If you think back to 2020, you can see where we had some stagflation in the hotels, the travel sector, airlines, etc., where they had to bring prices down to reflect the new amount of demand for those products and services in the economy. So let's fast forward this then, not just to 2022, but perhaps 2023. So we've got these crazy prices just running out of control, and we've got wages fairly stagnant. Well, what are people going to do? Their standard of living is going to be decreasing already. They need to focus on energy, heating, fuel, food, etc. So a lot of other discretionary spending and luxury goods will have to go downwards. What happens when these go downwards? The companies then will have to lay off staff. They'll have to start reducing their prices somehow. The raw materials are going to be much higher in prices, so they've got to figure out a way to do this. Will they do more automation, more AI? Will they just cut a lot of staff? Will they reduce their business premises? There's all sorts of creative things they're going to have to do, because otherwise they're going to go bankrupt, because consumers will just reject their prices. So they're going to have to get these prices down somewhat in order to meet that level of demand that exists at the time. And then usually in periods like this, you would then go into a period of deflation. Now, although historically that's what the trends say, it says deflation once we've gone through the inflation, stagflation and deflation, but I'm not so sure if that's going to happen this time. And I know usually I laugh at people that say this time is different. This time could actually be different with this cycle. Why? Because the Federal Reserve, the central banks of most countries, have created this huge trap at the moment for themselves, where they've really only got two outcomes. One is a very bad outcome and one is a atrocious outcome. So their bad example here, their bad situation, is that they raise interest rates, but they don't really do much of a rise, 0.5% here, 0.25% there. Maybe they get to 1 or 2% by the end of the year from pretty much zero at the moment. Now, they could do this, but it's not going to help the inflationary situation, because if we're getting reports of, say, 7.5% in the USA, the truth of that is more like 12.5% to 15% based on the metrics of the CPI from decades ago. So even if you get interest rates to 2% against 12.5%, 15%, you are still in a deficit of around 10% per year. So this isn't the solution, because inflation would then get too crazy, and then it would cause a period of stagflation and then probably deflation. Now, the other option is they just keep doing what they're doing, more quantitative easing. They don't do any tightening. They just let it keep going. They keep having this trade deficit. You could see ridiculously high levels of inflation. And if they just let it go on forever, you could see a hyperinflationary scenario in the USA. Sounds crazy, I know, but it is theoretically possible. So this is why I said this time could be different, because we could actually go into a high inflationary recession, which I, at this point, still don't even know how that would work, like for everything, for asset prices, for wages, for the economy. But it wouldn't be good, I can tell you that. I'm definitely going to start modeling this and just looking into this scenario. Even though it's a wild card and very much a curveball, it could actually happen this time around. An inflationary recession, which would be absolutely terrible for the economy, because how would they even get out of that without raising rates to 15%, 20% just to combat the inflation? So thanks for watching the video today. I hope this explained a couple of the thoughts I'm having at the moment around this recession, how it's going to come about, inflation, stagflation, deflation, etc. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. God bless.